how you're going to tackle a plate full of things is look at the plate and see what you're really passionate about and what you want to do. I think to a certain point, it's really helpful to be engaged in a lot of different activities, so you get diverse experiences and exposure to lots of things. For me personally, that was like maybe end of elementary school, middle school, early high school. And then after that, you get to a point where, hopefully you're continuing some of these different, whether it's academics or other extracurriculars or music or other kinds of music or dance, you get to a point in these where the further along you get, the more experienced you become, the more skills you gain, the more you need to put in to get that incremental amount of increase in ability or value or self-fulfillment. And so you may realize that you want to continue some of those things with a little bit more gusto or than others. And so I think that prioritization and being true to yourself and not what other people want you to do, but really think about what brings you joy. I think that's probably the most important thing. And then the rest kind of falls in from there, but happy to talk about specifics at different stages of, I don't know.
Anyone who has anything to say, please go ahead.
Hello. Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Not especially as good as speaker suggestion. I'll try to say something. I think practicing every single day is important for me at least. Don't practice 2 hours a day once a week, 2 hours in one day one day a week. Try to practice even 30 minutes a day helps a lot because it's all in the mind and it's all about kind of how you move. I mean, we don't quite think when we play. It's kind of becomes part of your movement. And I think if you can set aside 30-40 minutes, that's what Subhash Mama Samyu I have learned from him. He always says, 30 minutes, the params, this speed exercises we do for mridangam. For vocal, I'm sure there's something similar, violin, instrumental. So try to do it every day, even if it's not for as long. And don't push it to the weekend and do a huge session and then not think about it during the week, because I think it takes as much time to get back into it after a week. But if you do it every day, then it helps a lot. And you don't need to do it that long. Consistency, I think, is more important, but especially something that you do on the side. Doing it every day helps a lot.
To just touch upon the aspect that was very important to me was to keep the passion alive. Most times when you have a deadline, you have a homework solution. It is very hard to focus on other things that's not currently on highest priority when you're at school. So everyone has to find a small trick or small way to ensure that you're still plugged in to your passion. So it may be art, it may be sport. Just spend enough time or find creative ways to incorporate that one aspect as much as possible. Like if you can afford 40 minutes every day to practice, that's amazing. But let's say you're sick, even listening to a concert while you're recovering still keeps some aspect of that musical part with you. So try and imbibe it in different ways so you're still plugged in and not, as you procrastinate practicing, it becomes harder and harder for you to get back because you always think, I was not as good as how I was 1 week back. And that's not a good ecosystem you want in your feedback. So progressively making progresses, even small progresses, tiny amounts in areas that you like. It doesn't have to be, your weak areas or things that you have as your 2-year plan. Anything would keep you motivated. I feel it's very important to keep that motivation alive, throughout school, throughout college, and as you get into work.
Last thing, sometimes I know we have exams and so on, we cannot do it every day, but one thing I tried to do was tell myself, okay, I'm not going to not do it like more than 5 days, something like that. Keep a deadline. If you do it 5 days, then you say, I finished this exam, then I have another exam, then I'll go on vacation, come back and start, something like that. Just give yourself a few days if you have to, but make that number small, less than 10, let's say.
Anyone else?
I was just going to add and say, I think balance is an interesting concept because balance is not something that just comes to you. You don't wake up one day and you're 20 and say, wow, my life is really balanced today. It feels great. Now I have time for everything that I want. I think balance shifts based on your personal life, your career, your involvement in extracurricular hobbies, all of these things. So I think as we develop the art of being a good musician, it's important to develop the art of maintaining a balance and bringing a balance into your life. So that looks very different when you're in high school and preparing to apply to college. It looks very different when you're, starving and you've been up for like a 36-hour shift. And of course, I'm speaking from personal experience, but it's difficult to find the balance. So I think just also realizing that one key way that you can bring balance into your life and fit music into your life is realizing the importance that it brings into your life, longitudinally, long term. And the second thing is passion, which we just brought up. I think if that's something that you can find that's both intellectually challenging, but also something that's like a creative outlet, then you'll look forward to bringing that into your life. Sometimes it's difficult to sit down and do a 1 hour practice every day, but maybe on the days where you're not able to do that, like we already touched on, you can still listen to it in the background, you can still think about it. It's amazing how much you can develop and how much you can grow if you're just thinking about something. And then you sit down and you practice and you're already better. So I think that's a key thing to keep in mind. That also that passion, I think, comes through even when you're performing. Because one time I remember I was listening to a lectern and somebody said, if the music doesn't move you, it won't move the audience. So it's really about kind of balancing things on the outside, but also looking inward and trying to create that sort of healthy relationship that's exciting to practice. And you want to think about it, and you want to practice and things like that. But also being understanding of your own constraints, right? Because that changes with time. And as long as it's something that you love, I think you'll come back to it.
I was actually hoping to build off of what you were just saying and go into a little bit about, I know there were times in my life, especially early in high school, where I would lose motivation very quickly when I was practicing, and that would lead to periods of my life where I just wouldn't practice at all, or I wouldn't listen at all because I just thought I would never grow as a singer or as a musician in general. And I was just wondering, how do you keep that passion going? Like, how do you guys keep that motivation going? Because I know that that's something that a lot of people struggle with, or at least I have, and I'm sure that there are probably people in the audience that have also struggled with that. So just how you keep yourself driven and how you keep that passion and that joy for music alive. Also, after that, I'd like to open it up to any of the kids in the audience if they have questions too. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's two different aspects to that. So there's passion, which is kind of underlaying, right? If you don't have passion for whatever it is you're doing, ultimately at some point it's gonna kind of fall to the wayside. And I think that's fine for a number of things. So let's just assume as a baseline, right? Like the question is kind of addressed at people who have passion. Especially for arts and music, I think that passion kind of, it gets a hold of you when you're a kid, and then it sort of stays there for the rest of your life. So that's less of the driving factor than the motivation, which I think is interesting, and something that I'm sure all of us, and I personally have dealt with the very same situation. I think the kind of suggestions or ideas that I have that I wanted to share was having peers to kind of motivate yourself and work with makes a huge difference. I think all of us here have done like various sorts of jam sessions or played concerts together and gotten feedback from each other, or listened to each other give concerts. I know I have today, and kind of gotten an idea of somebody who's, you know, within the same sort of like skill bracket as you, who learns kind of this, who's kind of like learning from a similar teacher, maybe interested in similar aspects. You can learn from them and kind of benchmark, okay, this is an achievable goal for me to work on, right? Without broken down achievable goals, it's very hard to kind of do useful practice after a while. Like there's this sort of funnens practice that you were saying, Arjun, I think, which is like daily, just, you know, warm-ups. And then there's the kind of practice that gets you to the next level, right? And to do the practice to get to the next level, you have to do two things. One, you have to identify what the next level is. You have to have a concrete goal, right? And concrete goal after a while can't be, I'm just gonna do a concert, I want to do another concert. It has to be something specific, right? It has to be something more specific. I wanna do, like, I wanna give an RTP concert, right? I wanna do an RTP, and I want this RTP to be in a column that's different from Adi Talam, right? Or I want to do this kind of, like, I wanna play a style of Korbe or something like that, right? So you need to have, like, a very specific set of goals that you're working towards. And to be frank, I'm also trying to figure this out, right? It gets tougher as you get, you know, older and more advanced. And the second part is how you get to that, right? And how you get to that is two ways. Like you need to basically figure out what are you gonna do on your own to learn. I think, you know, in college and above, your music education falls on you a lot as well. Like you have to be self-motivated. You have to be listening a lot to different things. You have to be understanding what you're listening for. You have to, you know, practice notation. You have to practice all of that. And then you have to work with your teacher to make sure that like what you're learning in class, especially as those classes get more sporadic in the sense of like your schedule is tight, right? Like you're gonna take class when you have a chance. Like you have to make sure that what you're doing is useful to you, useful, like good use of your teacher's time, and also something like you go for that class, you learn for a couple of hours, and then you're going to be able to, you know, practice that and improve on it so the next class you're building on top of that, right? And so, like, I think for having those goals, like having like-minded peers is a big thing, and then also like spending a lot of time trying to listen to sort of, you know, established artists, like going to other concerts or even on YouTube, right? Because you need to know what you're working towards. Yeah.
So thank you, we're all really great parents.
All right, I'll expand a little bit on what Bishop said and add my own. I think one of the key things in not losing motivation and feeling frustrated is kind of figuring out why do you want to sing Carnatic music or play Carnatic music, or even like do anything related to Carnatic music. I think maybe when I was in high school, the answer to that question was very different than what I would say now. I think at that time, I was basically like, well, Carnatic music is cool, I like it, I want to be the best, I want to be so good. And I mean, I would practice with that in mind. But it was really frustrating, right? Because even at that time, I knew I had no hope of being like the best, you know, and so it was hopeless. So as I kind of went to college and went to grad school and all that, I think my whole philosophy on it has changed, and that has made it much less like a frustrating thing for me and more of a outlet for creativity and that kind of thing. I think this is personal to everybody, but for me, like, I guess the reason I continue to practice Carnatic music today, continue to sing, continue to perform occasionally, is not really just to like be the best or anything, because I'm not the best, I mean, that's a fact. I still try to improve and stuff. But more of what I'm trying to do is expose something unique that I can do that maybe other people are not choosing to do or not bringing out on the concert platform. Specifically, like I try to bring out my teacher's style, Ayuda style, that Bani was singing, and kind of stay true and try to provide something unique on stage. And that's kind of my purpose in singing Carnatic music. And I think there's a wide variety of things that everybody can do. And I think, additionally, it doesn't even have to be limited to like playing a kacheri or singing a kacheri. I think it's pretty unrealistic to say that everyone who learned Carnatic music as a kid should like grow up and try to sing kacheris every now and then. I don't think that's a realistic way to do it. But I think it's very realistic to, for example, be involved in your local community. I mean, I was in this community for a very long time, still am. I'm in Manta now, and I try to be part of the community there, which is growing and starting to thrive. I think that's a very realistic thing. I mean, there's different roles for everybody. It doesn't always have to be performance related. Yeah, I think that's about it. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, just wanted to add something really quickly. I think Vishwath and Shreyas really highlighted a lot of things, but just to also just pick up on something that spoke to me from their contributions was just listening to a lot of different artists. I think we all know Carnatic music is such an ocean, and there are so many people who are pushing the boundaries to what we already are building off of from the traditional greats and where we're going with innovation now in Carnatic music and mathematics and melody, rhythm, everything. So I find it incredibly exciting to listen to multiple different concerts, and even coming back from Chennai for like December season, it's kind of a withdrawal of sorts because we don't have that much music just generally at college. So I think just taking inspiration from everyone who's doing such amazing things in music right now is really exciting, and then also helps me sort of hone in on things that I want to incorporate into my own music and improve on as well. So I think there are so many people to take inspiration from, so that's what makes me passionate too.
Yeah, I think just to combine all of those things, I think having your goals and figuring out where you are and where you want to go is extremely important when you practice. Otherwise, you fall into this trap of practice that isn't productive. But also, what Samantha was saying, listening to things that you find exciting and you find interesting that you want to try. Like, you should have fun when you're practicing. Like, you should do things that make you excited about music and make you feel happy, while also focusing on where you want to go and doing the method of practicing your basics and improving whether it's your voice or the speed of your hands. You should find ways to incorporate fun into that, or else I feel like you fall into that, oh my gosh, this is so methodical and clinical and I can't find myself wanting to practice in the first place. So yeah, have fun.
Yeah, building off of what you said, I know as a percussionist, sometimes just like practicing just for 30 minutes straight, and my hand is burning, like it can get like so boring, and then you want to do something else, or you go to YouTube and then try to see what the greats are playing and try to imitate that. How would you, even violinists and other instruments and vocalists, how would you, in your practice sessions, incorporate something that's fun and that wants to challenging yourself, and but also building that skill that you can apply in your concerts?
Yeah, so I think like there's a technique, and like this isn't unique to Carnatic music or anything. Like, this happens in fine arts and other things. But you'll often see like in front of art museums, like there's art students just trying to like trace out what they see and do it to the best of their ability. So for me personally, sometimes when I hear something really exciting on flute, I literally take the YouTube recording and try to play along with it and try to do exactly what they're doing. And I think that itself is like a skill of improvement, right? Because then you're able to reproduce something that some professional has, and if you're able to incorporate it in the right context, it becomes a part of you. So yeah, I think really trying to listen and try to literally trace out what you hear and reproduce as well as possible.
Yeah, so I usually use a metronome to practice, but as you said, it's not all that exciting. I like doing it, but it's not like I'm thinking about long day or something like that. But before they had metronomes, my guru used to say what they did was they used to practice like 4 of them together, and that's how they kept the speed, because not all of them will slow down at the same time. So they keep the speed like that. Like Vellu Rambhadan, Karakadi Mani, Vinayagaram, Subhash Mama, they all used to practice together, they used to say. So try to find like 2 or 3 others, practice with them. Then it's like you try to keep up with them, right? And just keeping up with the person is completely different from just keeping up with the box ticking. So
Yeah, so just add a percussionist perspective of emulating grades, right? it is very tricky because half the time you hear, you won't be able to decode what they are playing because it is so fast. So I have had recordings of grades that you when you hear, because of the quality of the recording and because of how fast it's going, it is almost impossible to decode it per se. So if you want to incorporate something, here is how I did it very personally. To just take a part of something from, if you have a video reference of somewhere of that player playing, it kind of helps you to map out physically what they are trying to do. And YouTube now has this amazing feature where you can slow videos down. So chart it down and then take it out. I have personally gained so many different varieties of things I play by just sheer slowing down the speed in YouTube. Understanding how the tone and what they play map, and once you have that understanding about the artist, then you go to a recording. It's kind of intuitive. It's amazing how your brain can intuitively understand what they are doing at such speeds and then map it out. But to emulate grades, it's going to take time, so you have to perceive. But to incorporate, you can have small little things that you can do step by step and have a goal to do it by and do it in a concert. So there's some motivation for you to showcase what you have learned on a stage or even in a jam session. So people are asked for things like that. This is that motivation.
Before we continue answering the questions, I wanted to open it up to the kids in the audience, or the parents, literally anyone, but first preference is the kids. If anyone has any questions for anyone up here, it would be really great if you could ask them because we're getting so much good advice right now. Okay.
Yeah, you can shout out.
Oh yeah, shout it out.
Okay, so my question to all of you is, you guys are growing up in a different country where language is definitely a barrier. So one of the biggest things about Carnatic music is feeling the music and feeling what the lyricist actually means by so many of these songs, so you can emote better. How do you keep up with that? With so many different compositions, so many different languages, but you still have to emote to that language and and I think I spoke to Vishnu about it a little earlier today about it as well. But how do you keep up with different languages that the music is sung in? And for everybody, right? Not only just the vocalist, but for the violinists and the percussionists, you have to keep up with the emotion of that song. How do you guys do that?
Yeah, it's really difficult. For me personally, I like to connect to the ragam itself because I know that there's so many kritis out there written in so many languages, and it's impossible for me to understand the sahityam for every one of them. So I try to take the route of the ragam and try to understand the ragam as best as I can and use that to connect. But for kritis and understanding sahityam, I try to read the meaning. I ask my guru about where the kriti is from, how is it written, is there a story behind it? That also helps. I remember when I was in Chennai this summer, we went to Kapali temple, and the meaning of Kanakankodi actually struck me at that moment after seeing the deity. So I try to remember that when I sing that kriti. So such experiences I think have helped me better connect to what I'm singing. But yes, it is very difficult considering that Carnatic music is so vast and is written in so many different languages, and it's hard for us to connect to something that we cannot understand, per se.
Yeah, so being a violinist, I think it's especially easy to get carried away with just the tune of a kriti, or just play the melody. But so my gurus really emphasize learning to sing a kriti before learning to play it. And I think that really helps in understanding the meaning, understanding the purpose of the composer, and also, my guru, he's very particular about bow mapping, which is
playing to the sahityam of a kriti. So learning the kriti, learning to sing it, learning the meaning behind the composition so that you can play the correct modulation. I guess that's really important. So as a violinist, I think that and many people can attest this. Learning to sing the kriti first before learning to play it is definitely helpful.
I guess as Karthik was saying, from sort of like a percussionist perspective, it's very difficult, especially from our perspective, obviously, especially with instrumental and if we're accompanying for instrumental performances, knowing every single lyric that is happening and how are you supposed to accompany a lyric? How does that actually translate into a sarvala? Is this it's talking about the beauty of a deity and or talking about the mother, and is that a nakata dimiti dimi, or is that the dimiti taka, or is that what kind of it actually expressing the emotion of that song is very difficult. And I mean we've all said it in some way, but having peers with you to actually discuss and to discover together, because it's not actually, as Auntie Yasu was saying, it's a vast ocean. There's so many languages, there's so many different types of kritis, there's so many banis that one school sings it one way, another school sings another way, one stresses one lyric, one does another way, one says, oh, you can't do swarams on this line, and there's so many different interpretations. And so if you have one friend who speaks Kannada, and you have one friend who speaks Telugu, and you all get together and you speak Tamil, and then the Kannada person will ask you what does this kriti mean in Tamil? What does it mean? And you can relay your experiences. It essentially cuts the work you have to do by 33%. It's not a shortcut. It's obviously not if you have a friend who knows this kriti, then automatically you will know it yourself. But it is definitely a way to expand your understanding and expand the understanding of how to apply what you know, to have discussions and I mean to just try. If you go one kacheri, you don't have to play the same for a kriti every single kacheri. You can do one time where you're like, okay, I didn't like how I sang that line. Try it the next time or in practice. It's all about experimentation and collaboration. I think that's the best way to go about tackling such a large obstacle.
I agree completely agree with all of that. I think just maybe a little bit of a different perspective. I think not everyone can compose. If we could, we would all do it. I mean, I would love to. You know what I mean? But I can't because, not yet at least, because I don't have that mastery over language. I don't really have anything that I'm passionate enough to compose about. But the Vagyakaras and the composers whose pieces that we sing do. And the amazing thing about the vast majority of our music is that the music and the ragam and the lyrics are put together. They're married to create those emotions and to do that. So the package is there for us. So I think this question, it really depends who the question is for or what level of artist you're talking about. But I think for the vast majority of my musical journey, for me, I don't think I really worry too much about that. Because the important thing is to learn how to actually render these kritis, learn how the ragams are, how the gamakams are, how the music marries with the lyrics, how to pronounce things properly, and how to find the correct lyrics and sing the right things. Thinking critically about that, I think that's important. But I think the emotional attachment and that side of things, expressing yourself through the music and really finding how to make that meaning yours and present that to an audience, that comes with time. And it will happen naturally when you progress. That's part of the musical journey. I think learning the nuts and bolts is important. Just like everyone has said, those tools are very important, but it'll happen with time. Just learn the music that is supposed to be learned, trust your groove, just do it. Because the compositions are real good, okay? That's why even when like, the bass, like someone, like a 6-year-old sings a Geetam, man, if you know the meaning of that Geetam, or you have a gist, you can still feel it. And someone sings a Bhagavatam and they're like 10 or 12, they sing it really well, you can still feel it. It's just about learning that properly and singing it properly.
So, I know most of you personally, I know most of you are born, raised here and stuff, or some of you have spent most of your youth age, most of in America, right? The usual trend is parents take you, put you in a music school at the age of 5 or 6, and once you're 12, the parents, you're under a safe zone where you're under, you know what Carnatic music your parents literally pester you, daily to sing or practice or whatever, and then you do Arangetram, and you're done, right? But I see most of you have taken the journey to the next level after your 12th grade. Like she has taken a Veena to college and stuff, right? So, how do you, and at college, you deal with people from other ethnicities, right? So, your dorm mate or your roommate will be from another nation. What makes you still practice that? Or do you shy away from it? Because nobody wants to hear Sunny Robinson singing early in the morning. How do you deal with that when you're dealing with people with other ethnicities? Like most of your, one thing that I feel is, people take it to 12th grade, then it's done. Once the Aragantam is done, they take up the journey. But most of you have taken it to the next level. What do you advise to the kids out here? How should they face when somebody criticizes you about your cultural thing? What are you practicing? What are you shouting early in the morning? All those things. What do you advise to the kids out here?
I didn't consider that at all, actually. I just sang in my dorm. All my friends in Atlanta come to my kacheris. They're like white, black, you know, everything. I think my friend from college is going to come tomorrow. So, I mean, in my experience, most people don't care. I mean, like, obviously, like, be reasonable. Don't sing a karam at 4 a.m. and don't do that. But, like,
It's playing the tuba.
I mean, yeah, like, I think most people are pretty open to it. It's like, it's not that big of a deal. That's my answer.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Oh, sorry.
Well, I was, I guess from a different perspective for me, I went to UNC Chapel Hill. I majored in music, and so I was able to, even someone with a music minor is able to is able to access the facilities of a university, and it involves planning. So like obviously with it's maybe like with a violin you can put it mute. It's not. It's still loud. 1 and 2. Playing a violin with a mute just doesn't sound as nice. That doesn't make you excited to practice necessarily. But especially for mridangam, I mean, oftentimes I had classes from like 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. 10 p.m. is when I'm practicing mridangam. You cannot do that in a dorm. And so obviously like understanding what your resources are in college, understanding like what you actually have at your disposal, because there's a shocking amount of things you can do in terms of contacting a music faculty or saying like, hey, I practice this and I don't have access to the practice rooms. Would I be able to get that? And I mean, professors, especially even professors who aren't a performance-focused thing, maybe music history or something like ethnomusicology, those professors would love nothing more than to help you experience, and in turn, they might be able to also glean something from our experiences as Carnatic musicians that they won't actually, they may not get in their classes, in their general, the general class population. And so, because this is, I mean, obviously, this is more for college, because college is definitely where that crucible happens. It's like after high school, you're living with your parents, and they're able to be on your back, and they're like, okay, you have this room for practice, you practice now, and then college is when it's sort of make or break. And I know for my sister, she played Western violin. We all both played Western violin, and she didn't do music as a major or minor, and she encountered that, and where she tried to practice in her dorm, and she had random dorm mates, and they all were very opposed to her practicing. This wasn't even Carnatic music. This is just like Beethoven, this is Mozart. This is like Western music. But they didn't appreciate that, and that actually led her to, for a long time, put that on a hiatus. And I think it is definitely frustrating if you have situations like that. But understanding like your own passion and taking strides to make connections with people who can actually help in that regard is definitely the way to go. If you're committed to performing and pursuing these arts.
Yeah, I think there's also like a broader question in terms of like what we can do as Carnatic musicians to like not allow for those kind of situations to happen. And so I think one kind of key thing is to kind of explain what you're doing in sort of a nice way, kind of not showing that, this person just won't understand what I'm doing. Because actually a lot of people are willing to understand if you can break it down for them and kind of explain what it is you're doing, especially musicians. So I did like a minor in Western music, and all the faculty was super interested. And I think that was primarily because I was able to kind of show how it related to what they do, which is Western music. And so I think ultimately it's just knowing your audience and knowing how to connect with whoever you're talking to. Whether you're performing to people that have never heard Carnatic music, or like whether you're in the dorms with someone, a new roommate, and you want to explain what it is that you learned.
There's oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, I agree with everything that so far has been said on this topic. It's difficult. It's difficult, I think, we were just discussing a couple minutes ago how it's hard for us Rasikas to understand every composition and the intent behind the lyrics and things like that. So it's much harder to convince somebody who's not exposed to Carnatic music and show them the value of what this is instantly. It does take some time. I think starting that conversation is the first step. But then again, there's this quote that says, be who you are and say what you feel, because those who matter won't mind, and those who mind don't matter. So don't stop being true to yourself, and don't give up something that you're passionate about, because you won't realize what you've given up, I feel, until a long time afterwards, and it's maybe going to be too late for you to get that back. So what my advice is that if you can't figure out a place that you feel comfortable and you can make progress and you can pursue your passion, then look towards what you already have. Like, I've been fortunate enough to live in different cities and travel around the world, but there's nowhere like this community right here. And this is just phenomenal. So if somebody else is not able to understand your passion, look at the parents here that are bringing their children. Look at the grandparents that are here supporting us. Look at every single member of the community that came out for this youth music festival, whether or not they were personally invited, because they just love what we are doing and they want us to realize the value of that. So maybe you're not getting it from your roommate, but I mean, that roommate's probably not going to be the expert on, Muthu Swami Dikshit, their compositions anyway. So, maybe you're not getting it from one source, but try and, take a different perspective and look at what you do have. And what we have in this community is not normal. This is super, super, super special. And there's no reason, I feel like, to have a lack of, incentive and motivation, because so many of us here, there's so many people on this panel that I've known since I was a little kid. And so many people that I also just met. And I think that's something that you can focus on, perhaps, and derive more and more inspiration from.
I will let the rest of the panel answer this because I didn't start learning until I was after elementary school. I think 6th grade maybe, 7th grade. That's when I started learning Carnatic music. So I can't help you.
And I went to a lot of schools, so I can't remember when my elementary school was.
I went to a normal public school. That's a really good question. And one, it's very good that you're asking that. I don't think there's actually in elementary school, and when you go to school, and then you come back, and you want to have a snack, and you're tired, and so what you want to do is always have like a regular schedule every day. So it's 30 minutes is probably good. If you can do more that day, that's always good, but having that set time, because you probably have activities after school as well, so if you can block the same time every day, then you can basically make it part of your regular day. I think that's a lot more important in elementary school than the amount of time that you practice, and then making sure whatever your teacher told you to practice that week, I think most of the time your teacher's probably going to tell you at the end of class, this is what you need to practice for next week. Making sure that when you go to class the next time, you practice it, so that way your teacher can take the time to teach you something new or correct any of your mistakes. So just making sure that you practice every day with a set schedule is really important. You don't have to worry too much about the number of minutes. Because by the time that you practice what your teacher has told you to do, it's going to be 30 minutes, and then you can, get your best done. Like, it's going to take 30 minutes of practice. So yeah, I think I would be a lot more. Yeah, I think you should have that schedule. That's more important.
I'd also add, it's a good time to learn how to practice. I think I sort of still have the same sort of idea of practicing, where I practice fundamentals and then practice the thing that I learned most recently. And I think that sort of way of practicing follows you through life. So making sure you know how to still sing your 7 verses and your chanta verse and all of that. And then if you're learning new songs or new things, also practice those. But make sure whether you're doing voice instrumental or percussion, you're still practicing the fundamentals. And if you need to repeat things over and over again, do it. And if you have certain pieces of compositions that you're not quite getting, keep doing that little piece over and over again instead of just trying to, rush through it and get to the next one. Because that's extremely important to make sure you get what you don't know correct before you move on.
Okay, this is going to be the last response.
Oh wow, okay. So I actually, and this is something that I had gotten from my Western violin professor, who's also Svetak's Western violin professor, Dr. Dev Jr. For me, I only found this out in college, and so obviously, it's never too late to change habits and things like that. But there is no such thing as your required hours of practice, because at the end of the day, an hour of focused practice is way more beneficial and efficient and fulfilling than 3 hours of unfocused practice. And so maintaining focus through your practice time is the most important thing. And this is also for parents. When we are 8 years old, we cannot focus for an hour at a time. That is as someone who's no longer 8 years old, but was 8 years old, kind of recently. I know some parents it's been a while since you were 8 years old, but if you don't remember, it is very hard to focus past 20 minutes. And so taking just a 5-minute break of not practice. This is not go on your phone and start surfing TikTok or anything like that. That's not the 5 minutes. But it's 8 years old. They're giving children these iPhones and whatever. all y'all little whippersnappers and things like that. Old man over here. But it's 5 minutes it's almost 5 minutes of focused relaxation, and it's something that's helped me now when I am coming back from, now that I started working, I'm coming back from work, and I mean 8 hours of being on my feet, doing lab work, research, or if you're in front of a computer all day, think immediately going into like an hour of mridangam is not just physically exhausting, but mentally exhausting as well. And so understanding that if you play 10 minutes of focused practice, and then just have 3 minutes of maybe just breathing. Maybe you just think about something else, and then you go back 10 minutes of focus. That will be, and you do that for an hour, and then that will be way more helpful than you bashing your head against the same problem for 3 hours, and at the same time, and then the next day you forget everything that you've done. And so it's part, and I know that this question came from a very young person, which means the parents are also an active part of their lives now. And so this is equally for students as well as parents. It's like, it took me until I was like 21 years old to realize that I am not very good at focusing for more than like 20 minutes. And I can do that, it's easy in a concert, it's a 2-hour concert and I can be focused because you have that adrenaline, but when you're practicing you don't have that kind of a driving force behind you, like, oh, I'm on stage, oh, I'm performing. When you're in practice, it's like, oh my god, I want to play basketball, or like I need to do homework, or anything, like there's so many things that could distract you, and so allowing yourself to take a step back from the practice every so often will in the long run be way more beneficial than forcing yourself to sit down and then losing all your progress that you make.
That's it, no more practice.
That's right. It's not 5 minutes of on your phone. It is 5 minutes of focused relaxation. It is 5 minutes of breathing. It is 5 minutes of just not focusing on what you just did. That's the biggest thing. Is taking a step away and then refocusing and energize. Your next 10 minutes will be even more efficient.
Thank you, Kapil, and thank you all so much for being here. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm sure that this helped a lot of people. It helped me, so I'm hoping it helped the audience as well. And it was really fun listening to all of you guys talk, so thank you.